So, hello and welcome back to Arc Logos podcast. I'm pleased to say I'm one of your hosts. My name is Sherelle Wilson Morrison, and I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Anita Pinto Young.
And Rose Tabere.
So most importantly, we just want to say welcome back to our listeners and our followers. So today I thought we'd talk about emotional well-being, considering that we are an emotional well-being and lifestyle podcast. So I thought it would be great to start off by saying, what is emotional well-being? I'm going to come to you first, Anita.
Oh my gosh, picking on me again.
As we do.
So I'd say emotional well-being is a state of wholeness. So wholeness is being of sound mind, health. So your emotions, your spirituality, being well, just feeling good in yourself is what I'd say is emotional well-being.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, same here. I think emotional well-being is having that happy mindset, being happy in yourself, and I'll bring in being physically well as well, because if you're not healthy, then you're not going to be well emotionally.
Yeah.
So being happy and being well.
Perfect. And it's so good that you said about emotional health, wealth and well-being, because it was actually World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we have to obviously acknowledge that, considering that we're talking about emotional well-being.
Yeah.
And I think it's just important to recognize, what do we do to ensure that we are keeping ourselves well? And it made me think back to one of our episodes where we were talking about hobbies.
Yeah.
And we talked about some of the things that we like to do. And we did say to our listeners, hold off, because we're going to come back and revisit it. And I know we spoke a lot about my basketball side of things. And then we talked about you being a baker, Rose. Yeah. And also Anita was lucky enough for us to hear you sing. I'm starting being nice. Warming up. So anyone that's new to listening to us, we love to banter. So I'm just warming the context before I get ready to just...
What are we expecting, Rose?
Starting already. I was being polite and positive, but you know. But yeah, so I know we spoke about some of the stuff that we do to keep ourselves emotionally well. And I think for me personally, I enjoy exercise. And when I say exercise, I'm talking about team sport. Gym, and I know you and I need to have spoken about this many a times. I have a love-hate relationship with the gym. It's something that I know I need. That's the love side of it. But the hate side is, I don't want to go. Give me gym classes, but going there, doing the weights, I'm getting there. Yeah. So I'm just come back from holiday, and bless my husband, he gave me a little gym program. Wow. And I was able to actually work out whilst away.
He's a personal trainer, isn't he?
He's got experience in being a personal trainer. And so that was my experience. So I'd say definitely for me, it would be team sport is my go-to when I'm feeling stressed or if I need to just offload. I feel having that safe space I'd find in my team sport, it really helps.
That helps your mental health, eh?
Absolutely.
That helps keep you sane.
Yeah.
I've actually been reading about exercise, and my goodness, I think I'm going to start going to the gym now.
Really, Rose?
Yes. I think it's been
we're gonna hold her to that, Sherelle.
Yeah. I know. Oh no, I'm up for the challenge. Definitely up for the challenge, because I just learned a lot about what exercise does to your mental health. And one of the things that that really hooked me was the fact that it produces
endorphins.
Yes, some happy hormones in your brain. Makes you happy. Changes your mood. And what I also liked about it was about making you actually you get energy. Deals with your stress.
Yes.
And it just lightens your mood. There's something that exercise does, and it makes you. They even mentioned making you quite sharp, and
your brain
does. Yeah. So there's a lot that it does, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say I love the gym. I think one time I was speaking to our aunt who said the gym is something you do because you have to do, right? And sometimes with a busy schedule, the half the battle is getting there. Actually getting out of the house, putting on your clothes and getting there. And sometimes I almost have to trick myself into going by laying out my clothes. and then putting them on and going. But honestly, once I'm in a really good gym routine, I'm energized. I feel good. I feel like I'm on cloud nine. I feel healthy. I don't become as unwell. I don't pick up bugs going around. I don't feel lethargic. And like you said, I feel sharp. I feel like I'm a lot more productive and I'm able to get a lot done. Whereas if I'm not been going to the gym a bit, and sometimes it could be because you're not feeling well or you're just tired, you can go through those slumps. So in a lot of ways, I mean, I know some people go to the gym around weight loss, and sometimes that's important in terms of managing your health.
Oh, definitely.
But it's really important for you, just your overall well-being. Your heart rate keeps your heart rate going.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. Some people I know go to the gym for self-care as well. So they use that as me time.
Yeah.
I've got quite a few friends that I just wish they lived closer to me so that we could go to the gym together. But at the same time, they go and they're talking about this is my me time where I can focus on me. I'm in control. I can do what I want to do. And like you said, Anita, coming out after that feeling refreshed.
Yeah.
But obviously, alongside health and exercise, there are also other aspects of emotional well-being that we need to also acknowledge.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Rest.
Getting enough sleep.
Getting enough sleep. And I'm told, just going back to exercise, that it makes you sleep better, is it?
Yeah, so there are times when coming in from a long workout and you hit the pillows and you sleep a lot. But some people that I know have a gift of sleep, and whatever's going on or not, they can put their heads on a pillow and sleep.
Yeah.
In fact, they can sit anywhere in the world and just
sleep.
sleep. I'm not one of those people.
Oh, you know what? I'm laughing because my friend actually recorded me. We went to a trip to Canada. This was a few years back. And it was so funny. It would always resurface every birthday. But the way she edited it was terrible.
Oh my
So
God.
she literally recorded us from going to the airport, getting at the airport in the UK, and then getting to the Canadian airport. And then on top of that, getting to the Airbnb we were staying at. And literally every time I'm sleeping. I could be perched on a side, I'm sleeping. Even at one point, I'm sitting up, just conked out. And literally the way it got edited, and I'm going to shout her out, Lucy, thank you very much. The way she edited that, it was just unreal. So hopefully it's not resurfaced for quite some time. But it just reminded me when you said that I can sleep anywhere. Once I'm tired, that's it. It's like
Gone.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Yeah.
I'm also good at nodding, especially when I'm being driven.
If you're driving.
But of course, you're not going to sleep when you're driving. But then when you are the passenger, I got the tendency of actually falling asleep. Yeah, that is my That's
It
my
is
biggest
in a
soothing.
car.
In a car, yeah.
You know, there's some
definitely.
babies who they're giving trouble. They're struggling to get them down to sleep, and the
Yeah.
parents will put them in the back seat of the car, drive around,
Yeah, drive around the
Yeah.
block.
and they'll fall
Yes.
asleep.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
the point you were making on a serious note, Rose, is that lack of sleep can affect your mental
does.
health.
It
Yeah.
does.
And I've gone through periods where I struggled to sleep because of anxiety, and it was wrecking me. I had to get sleep tablets. I had to be prescribed tablets to fall asleep, and it's not a nice feeling when you are laying down and you can't sleep. And some people suffer with insomnia.
Yeah.
Which is really difficult for your mental health because you're tired, you're laying down,
Yeah.
and you can't sleep. But some people
I know.
sleep
I
anywhere.
think-
It's a gift.
Yeah. And not having sleep, I think, also makes you cranky.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So
It
sleep
does.
is definitely important.
It is. Yeah.
It blurs your vision and your overall understanding. I mean, I need 9 hours sleep. to
9
function.
hours.
I need
A lot.
9 hours.
That is a lot.
I
That's
need
a
9
lot.
hours.
So anything less than that, you're not fully
8
functioning.
hours is okay.
Okay.
But it feels like I need to plan to sleep for 9 hours.
Okay.
It never happens because I probably get up and go to the toilet, and there are times when, for even a reason, I might get up and do my reflections or whatever for an hour and then doze off again. But I need to plan to sleep for 9 hours.
Wow.
I can't sleep more than 8. It would be too much for me. It
Trying to
would
work
make
out
me
mine.
ill.
I'm lucky to sometimes even get 6.
Well,
or
you
so
sleep
hours.
everywhere.
Maybe that's what I get my
That's
little
why,
my little
yeah.
pick me ups with my naps. Maybe because I do like to nap. If I don't have a nap, sometimes I do feel like I dip.
Cranky.
Yeah, I do need to have a bit of a nap, even if it's just like I call it a power nap.
But you sleep
Yeah.
anyway.
But I could, anywhere. So there'll be times I'll be watching TV and I'm like, oh, this is, I'm gone. No snoring, obviously, but just like, oh, and
Do
I'm
you not
gone.
snore? But how do you know? Because when you're asleep, you don't know if you're
So
snoring.
I believe that I do not snore.
Okay.
Um,
You have to
yeah, I don't
ask-
believe that I
You
snore.
have to ask witnesses.
Yeah, but I'm sure people will attest to that. I don't snore. And like I said about that video footage of me sleeping, there was no snoring. So that's my evidence to
But
that.
you were just dozing. You weren't in deep
That I was
sleep.
gone.
Like
I was
you have to
sleeping.
be in REM sleep. Isn't it REM sleep?
But
have
would
to
you
be?
know? How would you know that you
Exactly.
yeah, it's difficult to tell when you're fast asleep and
Yeah.
you're snoring unless someone tells you you're actually snoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to tell.
But what about people who sleep and have nightmares?
Mm.
How would that affect mental health?
It depends because if this is something that feels like it's real and if they don't have time to deal with that, then that could obviously affect them for the rest of that day, week, however long it may take.
Yeah, because some people might have, say, unresolved trauma from childhood,
Yeah.
or have had post-traumatic stress, for example, and then have really terrible dreams, where they're just having flashbacks in their dreams, or just having really disturbed sleep, and then sometimes people can be depressed as well, and just sleep too much, just can't get out of bed. You're tired all the time. So I guess whatever we talk about, whether it's sleep or exercise, it's that balance. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the balancing act that then helps with your well-being.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I've noticed that when I'm stressed or if I'm experiencing stress, I tend to have either disrupted sleep or nightmares because there's a lot, you're overthinking, there's a lot on your mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I try to repress it. You think you do during the day, but then come nighttime when you're relaxed, it comes back. And that made me think about certain things where you got to remember and separate what's reality from what's not. And just obviously utilizing my faith, prayers, like you mentioned earlier, doing your devotions and things like that, or journaling.
Yeah.
There's many different things. I know personally, I don't journal. Maybe that's something that I could maybe explore. But I would usually, if I'm lucky, I'll speak to my husband, prayer. I'm trying to get better at reading my Bible as well so that I can just turn to scripture and then just hopefully get that peace and then go back to rest.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think mindfulness, you just mentioned, being mindful and knowing your body, knowing that there's something wrong here. What can I do about it? And I like the fact that you've listed quite a number of things that you can do to deal with that. So being mindful and understanding your body and, there's something wrong here. What am I going to do about it? I feel like this or that, like seeking therapy or, yeah.
And that's the question I was going to ask, because you mentioned sometimes stuff going on and you're repressing it and then it affects your sleep. And it's something that a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Where I'm having a negative emotion, let me just push it to the side.
Yeah.
Let me just sweep it under the carpet. But it's there and it plays out either in your dreams.
Yep.
Sometimes people might snap at somebody, having angry outbursts, or just can even go as extreme as having panic attacks, because people think if I just push it away and repress it, it goes away. But you helpfully talked about things like journaling, things like talking to your partner, reading the Bible, or just praying and just finding ways. Exercise sometimes helps as well. With that.
And how about in terms of mindful our thoughts, what we think about. Does it help, not to think about, the negative and the more, morbid or difficult things about our thoughts, what we think about, or even avoiding thinking about negative stuff and avoiding, dealing with, having those negative thoughts. So what we think about and even how can I put it? What we watch may not be very helpful, can trigger something.
Can trigger negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Because what I was going to say is, and probably ask maybe Sherelle, is that there are some people who can't stop the negative thoughts, though. Like, no matter how hard you try, they keep. And so what would you tell somebody then who's having, say, for example, post-traumatic stress?
Yeah.
And there are these really difficult memories that keep coming back that you're trying your best to suppress, and they're just not going away. Like, what do you do? But what you said about the TV thing is it makes a lot of sense, because often what we take in affects us, and sometimes mindlessly scrolling on social media.
Yes.
I've spoken to people who say they struggle with anxiety, but they sit and watch all of this sci-fi or crime documentaries. And it's like, but you're filling yourself with a lot of garbage. Like, or the comparison of watching social media and thinking that you know what's happening in people's lives because you see 10%, if that much, of what's going on based on what people post.
Yeah.
And then you start to compare yourself and get into that space of envy, and this obsession with other people's lives, which is what social media is.
Yes.
I mean, do watch us, though, because we're talking about good things on social media.
Yeah.
But it's that balance around sometimes cutting down the screen time and doing things that are healthy for your mind.
And that's so important, because it made me reflect a bit about myself. And I'm one of those scrollers, but I've had to put a timer because it can be quite addictive.
Oh, yes.
And it's so easy to see things on social media, think, oh, wow, they have a great life, or they have it great, they have it made. And I think a learning curve for me was I went to a birthday party one time, and I'll never forget it. And this is when I realized, wow, you only post what you want people to see and know. And I'll never forget, the table was quiet. Literally, you could hear a pin drop. One girl posted and it said, having the time of my life.
Oh,
And I thought to myself,
really?
1 second, because am I in the same environment, in the same room as what I'm just seeing you post?
Yeah.
And then that made me realize, wow, you're right. Like, you show the world what you want them to see.
Yeah.
And that for me was an eye opener, and it made me think, I have to be careful and be mindful when I'm scrolling and when I'm seeing all these perfect things on social media, because we know in real life there's highs and lows.
Yeah.
And it's just about making sure that, we just don't absorb it all in and think that's reality.
Yeah. And also it's about exposing yourself to what you watch, because a friend actually said she'd stopped having WhatsApp because of what people post, and some of the things that people post, are very, very how can I put it, very traumatizing.
But you can just mute them.
I know you can, but there's some people who, because of their own fragile mental health, will not and would rather,
because it's triggering for them, isn't it?
Because it is,
Because what I've had to do is, there were times in the past where I'd probably have one or two people on my social media who would just post really horrific things in my chat. And I've had to pull people up and say, can you please not post that? It's just, it's inappropriate. Or there are times when I've had to go to the extreme of just blocking somebody because my mental health is more important than being in touch with you.
Yes.
And the other thing I've had to do is, the statuses. Just that little blue ring, you want to click on it and see what's there, right?
Yeah.
There are people I've had to put on mute.
Okay.
Because, every time you go on their status, it's going to be something morbid or just graphic.
Yeah.
So, obviously I have a lot of family and friends who I want to keep in touch with. So I'm not going to deny myself of WhatsApp because of them. I just limit who. And if I know what you're going to post is going to be toxic, you're just going on the block list.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So what other things do you guys feel like you do to keep well?
I think having these social connections, friends, spending time with family, with friends, socializing, I think is very, very, very helpful for our mental health, emotional well-being. Having that sense of belonging, it gives you, that self-worth. Having fun and laughter. Oh, I forgot laughter. Goodness me. There's a verse actually in the Bible. Is it Proverbs 17:22, which says, laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
And
yes.
again,
It's
what
good medicine.
it's that what do you call it? The hormones,
Releases endorphins.
in the brain again. It's true. Laughter.
Yeah.
So watching comedy, having a real good laugh.
So when I laugh
Yeah.
at people, I'm actually doing good, right?
I knew that was going to come back to that. Depends on what type of laughter.
It depends if you're laughing with and not at. Because laughing at someone is going to could cause
Offense.
offense
Or
and
shame.
yeah.
I don't think Cheryl minds when I laugh at her, though.
I could help my self-esteem.
Help yourself, hurt your self-esteem when I laugh at you.
I'm so nervous now. I'm saying the wrong thing.
Well, first of all, you're not emotionally fragile. So, and I think it's so when you say social connections, I think I'd want to qualify it with healthy social connections.
Oh yeah.
Because
definitely.
I think they're people that you can sit with, talk to, and you come away feeling quite drained, tired, or just feeling like that something has left you. So for me, I'm really quite intentional about the people that I keep in my inner space. And sometimes people might think it's standoffish. I'm quite friendly. I'm a really friendly person. I talk to almost everybody. But I'm really intentional about who I keep in my inner circle. Because a lot of the times when people are accessing therapy, it's because of damaged and broken relationships. Sometimes even with family members.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I guess my question to Shirelle would be, as our host, what advice would you give to people who have relationships with family members that are toxic, like difficult, toxic relationships with family?
Wow, put me right on the spot there. Can I phone a friend? It depends on where they are at in their stage of their journey. Would be the best point to kind of assess. Yeah. So for me personally, if they are at the denial stage, it's going to be difficult to try and gauge that person. They have to be wanting and willing to make change. And if they are, then I would definitely strongly encourage therapy. I think for me, the idea of having therapy, a lot of people sometimes say, oh, no. There's nothing wrong with me when I'm having therapy. But my personal relationship with therapy, I think has been positive and it's helped. And I remember someone saying to me, in life, you should have a financial advisor, a therapist, and a coach. Yes. Wow. Those three things. And so I would always encourage them. And it's nice to have an outside perspective, not one that's immediately connected to the family, and a safe space to hash out anything that you need to hash out, and then to kind of bring it back together. So that would be my advice. Yeah.
You really good. It depends on if they are willing and prepared to change. Yes. Because if you have and you go through therapy and it does not change, you do not need to expose yourself to that toxic relationship. Yeah, and
even if it's family,
if it's that's really that's
it's
a
hard.
Difficult one.
It is
That's
hard.
really hard.
Yeah.
That is really hard. It's about how you navigate these relationships. I think it's and coaching I think helps in terms of how do you manage and navigate these relationships. Yeah? How do you make it positive? And how do you avoid the
and if you can't make it positive because say you have a family member who's toxic and everything about them is toxic, being around them is toxic, they rehash whole wounds, they never admit to being sorry, what do you do?
Love them from afar.
And how do you do that though? How do you love someone from afar?
That's setting what a boundary. I mean.
Setting a boundary.
Yeah, setting those boundaries and navigating those relationships. You know when you're going to talk to them, when you're going to leave them, and how you leave them in a manner that is helpful, not negative. That
is some wisdom, You know how you're gonna love them when you and how you're gonna
definitely.
And the interesting thing for me is about 90% of the people who come for therapy or who access coaching have some struggles with relationships, right? So a lot of the times you're working with adults who are either broken, have some emotional wounds, experience, things like anxiety, whatever it is. And oftentimes you're able to trace it back to difficult relationships with a parent or both parents. And a lot of the work sometimes has to be to talk through those relationships from early childhood, recognize the damage it caused, recognize the situations that were traumatic, talk through them, help people to unpick, those experiences and to process and to find some kind of closure. Because often what people went through as children then translates into relationships with adults.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, people growing up in a relationship where they had parents who were abusive or critical or just weren't there, for example, and then become adults who are not well adjusted and have so much unresolved trauma and issues, and then take it out on everybody.
Yes.
And
it's important to break that cycle, because
Absolutely.
then how are you then going to, because it moves from then generation to generation. Because if you don't break that cycle, how are you going to bring up your children who are going to grow up really damaged by,
your own experiences?
Your own experiences. Yeah, that secondary trauma that they are also experiencing. How do you break that?
Because you never healed, and then you're basically passing on to your children what your parents did to you. So that intergenerational trauma.
Definitely.
And coming back to your point, Rose, where you talked about setting boundaries, I think it's also important to be boundaried with yourself and recognize how much you can take and tolerate.
Yes.
Because remember, you mentioned it earlier, Anita, about that transference. And if you're setting those boundaries, it's great. But then what happens with what you're holding? What do you do with that? Do you just sit with it? Then it becomes negative thoughts, cycle once again. So it's about, where can I go and offload that? Where can I make sure that when it gets too tough for me, rather than absorbing it, I'm making sure that I walk away from that.
You have an outlet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess as well, that's where therapy comes in. Like you said, a lot of people shy away from therapy. And if you mention therapy, think you're saying there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Or they're mad. And sometimes in the Black community, we're sometimes averse to therapy. And we think, if something is wrong, just go and pray and read your Bible, or just go and talk to somebody. And if there's solid people in your life that you can talk with, it can resolve some things. But sometimes you're talking about serious issues. And I think in some ways, to context what we're speaking about today in terms of well-being, we're talking about generalized well-being. But then bear in mind that there are people who have mental health issues that are quite severe,
of course,
such as clinical depression, whether it's bipolar, schizophrenia. And in those instances, people need medication and psychiatric help, right? But in terms of generalized well-being, sometimes things like anxiety as well sometimes need medication. And then sometimes we use words flippantly. People say, I'm depressed. I have anxiety. And it's like, well, what is that? Have you been diagnosed as suffering from generalized anxiety, or you just feel a bit anxious? Are you clinically depressed, or you just feel a bit depressed? Because all of us feel some type of depressive mood at time, or all of us have times when we experience flutters of anxiety. But it's when it gets to the end of it, where it's so extreme, where people can't function and impairs your day-to-day function.
When it becomes clinical.
And then people need to go and access professional support from a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's good. There's so much power in spoken word. And the amount of times we put labels on ourselves, or we accept labels that have been given to us, and then we start to live out that truth. And I think, Anita, you were just basically explaining that it's just important to recognize sometimes it's better to speak, or try to speak some positivity into yourself. Try and see the light through. There's like a saying about seeing the light through
at
the
end
tunnel.
of the tunnel.
That's it. Thank you so much. I was so confused there. Light at the end of the tunnel. But just that importance, really.
And I think spirituality helps. It's something that we shouldn't lose sight of, because there's so much in the Bible about God wanting us to be well. And really understanding the word and taking that on board. And the need for us to cast our burdens.
Yes.
Preach, Rose. And obviously being able to pray and knowing that there's a higher power outside of us that we can go to for help.
Definitely.
So we're not doing this thing by ourselves. There's somebody watching over us, protecting us, caring for us. And when we cry out to him for
Definitely.
help, and there are also studies that show that people who attend church, for example, and
Yeah.
have that corporate fellowship, that
Yes.
corporate coming together to sing and to worship,
Worship,
that it
yeah.
actually improves people's mental
It
health and
does.
lifespan.
It does.
You know
It's
that's
true.
true.
No, I
It
didn't.
does. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how that helps people's well-being. So I guess like I said, some of the work we do in coaching, because we're talking about well-being now, and how we support people in the workplace is, there are times when in the workplace there are people going through really difficult things, and some of the things we've come across might be people struggling at work, for example. So stress, sometimes
yes.
overwork, people sometimes experiencing burnout. And in terms of well-being, how do we recognize, like, do we know our triggers? Do we know when we're getting to the point where we're doing too much? Because I remember one time having, like I said, going through a bout of struggling with anxiety, and what felt like depression at the time. I'd taken on too much. I thought I was Superwoman. So I was going to school full time, no, going to school part time, working full time, and I was doing everything. And being able to say no.
Oh, yeah. It's a big
Yes.
one.
Because there were
Yeah.
times when I was in situations where, even in church, I was being asked to do this and this and this and this. And you somehow think if you say no, you're letting people down.
Yeah.
When actually you're letting yourself down, because you're impacting your own well-being.
Yeah.
And also, again, when we go back to the issue of boundaries, where sometimes you're in positions where there are people who draw from you,
Yes.
especially if you present like somebody who has a lot to offer. And like I said, you seem strong. So, for example, we're doing this podcast, people will see snippets now and then. People see the videos and think, oh my gosh, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
I can reach out to this person because they have a lot going on for them. And not knowing that we're tired.
Yes.
We are tired.
Because
Yeah.
the amount that's going on in the background that we're having to do.
Yeah.
And again, you don't always have the time that you had before, and it's being okay with saying no at times. And if I'm letting you down, it's all right, but I can't help the world.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm not
true.
helping myself.
So knowing your limit. And again, that brings me back to mindfulness, being mindful of, what I can and cannot do, what's good for me, what isn't, and how do I manage that?
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned that, Anita, because I think it took COVID for me to realize that I need to start slowing down. And also it takes you to be in circumstances where, so I became unwell at one point, and I believe that similarly, like you said, I was taking on too much.
Yeah.
And for me, I would never say no. So there'll be times where I'll be invited to like 3 or 4 events, and I'll go into all those 3 or 4 events. And it wasn't so much about the fear of missing out. It was, I didn't want to let people down. I was like, they've extended that invite to me. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm showing up for those people. And I think, like I said, COVID hit, I became unwell, and then you start to see who's making that effort for you, who's showing up for you, who's not just taking and drawing from you, but who's also putting into you and investing in you. And that was a real eye-opener for me. That made me realize, actually, you're only one person. You're not Superwoman. You are still an amazing person in terms of friendship-wise, but you have to know your limits and your boundaries. And it's not every day, yes, yes, yes. Sometimes it's okay to say no for yourself, for your own emotional well-being, for your own mental health. You need to say no. It was hard because I didn't know what no was. But trust me, nowadays, I definitely know what it is. And I'm happy that I've come to that realization, because I think it's so important. And especially to our listeners, I want them to be aware that it's really important to look after yourself. And even if it means missing out on that one event, just so you can refuel and replenish, people will be okay. They'll understand. Just let them know.
Yes. Yeah, taking on too much at times.
Yes, Rose. Yes.
Oh, definitely. I'm learning to say no. Setting those boundaries. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Taking on too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think even what we said earlier about family, there are times when I've had to say to people that I've worked with that being close to family is an ideal. But there are times when the reality is that you can't be close to people, even if they're family. Hard, isn't it?
It is
Yeah.
hard.
Because I've worked with people who've had parents who've been so toxic and damaging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Displaying behaviors that are so narcissistic, not willing to change. If they're confronted, just kind of dismiss it or pretend it's not happening. And I think, like I said, I've probably spoken to people who've had parents who've been severely abusive. You're talking about things like either emotional abuse, severe neglect, and even in instances where there's been sexual abuse. And that parent is unrepentant.
Yeah.
Even when confronted, unrepentant, refuses to acknowledge that they've done anything wrong. And there are those extreme circumstances where you have to say, people, listen to people for your own mental health.
Yes.
You ain't got to be in touch with that person.
Yes.
It's a hard one to say.
It is
hard.
hard.
It's a hard
It is
one.
hard. It is hard.
Yeah. And I think especially culturally in our cultures, Caribbean cultures, African cultures,
Definitely.
the idea of family is so important.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes.
people say, oh, but you have to love your mother or you have to love your father. And the Bible says you must honor your parents.
It's true.
But there are times when, like I said, some of those relationships are damaging. And a lot of the times, like I said, there are people coming to therapy because of relationships with parents
Yes.
that have not healed, and it's, like I said, if people can be repentant and be sorry and you see where they want to make changes, good, we can roll. But if you refuse and you're adamant about being the way you are, I'm going to have to love you from a distance.
Absolutely. And you're still honouring. Just because you're not in my life does not mean I'm going to be disrespectful.
Good.
No.
But I'm still going to honour that relationship. But it's just, like you said, it's not right for me right now and I need to do it from afar.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes for your healing, you just can't be close. Because how are you going to be, okay, so you're coming to therapy, you're trying to heal, but then you're exposing yourself to the same person who hurt you in the first place.
Yeah.
And each time they're rehashing that wound.
Yes.
And you don't have the space to heal.
It's bringing
And
you back.
it's triggering. Yeah. Because whatever they do continues to trigger you. Yeah. It's not healing. Yeah.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
And literally, we could talk about this topic for days.
Yeah.
But we are slightly running out of time. But before we wrap up everything, I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of give your last thoughts when it comes to the word emotional well-being. What does that mean to you? And any advice that you'd give our listeners? And I'm going to start with Rose this time.
Good.
Oh my goodness me. How am I going to summarize everything that we have just said?
Well, you don't have to
And I
summarize
think
everything.
Your
No.
advice. What would be your advice?
my advice is look after yourself.
Yes.
Know yourself. Understand your limits. And look after yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Advice.
Similarly, listen to your body.
Okay.
Know what your triggers are. Listen to how your body feels. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score, which talks about how we deal with trauma. Listen to how you feel when you're around people. If you go around people and you come away feeling good, keep those people. But if there are people you go around and you come away feeling drained, tired, upset, you don't have to be around everybody. Like you're not here to fix the world. And just set boundaries and look after yourself, really, and get therapy if you need it. There's no shame in getting help.
Okay. So you guys, I should have started with myself. Because you took all the answers. But I would just mirror everything that you said in terms of looking after yourself, setting boundaries. And most importantly, I would say the best thing I've taken from today is knowing when to say no. I think that's so important, making sure that you look after yourself. And yeah, it's okay to say no. Definitely.
I know you're going to sing, Cheryl, because we have another minute.
I thought you said we were going to sing. No, Rose said that she was going to sing. We agreed that I'm not doing no singing. No way, I'm not doing no singing. I might do singing after the minute.
After the...
But no.
It's your turn to sing. I
In
think we
all
both
seriousness,
No, I'm
as the
joking.
host, I've made the decision that I would like either Rose or Anita to sing.
No, it's fine. We don't have to sing
don't
today.
have
We
to.
Oh,
sing
so the
today,
subject
Taking it-
matter's changed
We're
now.
taking it off the
No,
agenda.
but
Yeah.
what I'd want to say to our listeners is let us know what you guys do for emotion to keep yourself self-care and demonstrating emotional me get my teeth back in. Demonstrate what you do to maintain emotional well-being. It's really important. We'd like to hear your ideas, your thoughts and views, and also any comments. We would like you to follow, like and subscribe. Thank you to those that are already doing it. And anyone new, we're always happy to welcome you to Arc Logos Podcasts. Thank you for your time. Look after yourself and be kind to yourself.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.